Good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining me for this week's Thursday with AARP Wisconsin show. I am Amber Miller, your host. And of course, before we get to our guest today, just a few friendly reminders. Please remember the AARP Wisconsin website. So, should you have any questions about election, advocacy, volunteering, upcoming events, you can find all that information at aarp.org/Wisconsin. Also, please remember the Community Connections website. You can find information here with local volunteer opportunities that you can join or even create your own volunteer opportunity within your neighborhood or community. You can also find information about the AARP Friendly Voice Initiative that started during the start of COVID. And what you could do is put a request in for yourself or for your loved one to receive a phone call from one of our trained AARP volunteers, because as we know, it's very nice to hear just a friendly voice on the other end. So if you're looking for information on either of those, you can go to the website or by calling 1-888 281-0145. And just as a friendly reminder, for the AARP Friendly Voice Initiative, it's open to all ages. It is free, and you do not need to be an AARP member to take advantage of that. We are looking for volunteers to join the AARP Wisconsin family. We will be slowly getting back into the community, so of course looking for great volunteers to help us do that. So if you're interested in learning more about the opportunities within your area, or if you would like to apply for a volunteer position, you can go to the website below, which is aarp.org/I-want, the number 2, volunteer. So aarp.org/I want to volunteer, or you could visit the AARP Wisconsin website for that information. And also I would like to say if we appreciate so much our AARP volunteers. And of course, we know April is National Volunteer Month. So I just want to personally thank all of the AARP volunteers that make us as impactful as we can within our local community. So thank you very much. So if you might know, this week is National Library Week. So I'm very excited to have Nyama Reed. She is the president of the Wisconsin Library Association, and she also is, during her day job, the director of the Whitefish Bay Library. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And if you have any questions during this program, we will be taking them live. You can post them below on facebook.com or on our YouTube page. We will get to them very shortly. So this might be the first time somebody has heard of National Library Week, but National Library Week of this year, of course, occurs April 3rd to the 9th. So we are in the midst of it. Can you tell us more about that and what it is for?
Certainly. Thank you very much. National Library Week is brought about by the American Library Association and celebrated across the country by, in particular, public libraries, also other libraries types out there. And it's a time to celebrate our nation's libraries and library workers and to promote library use and support for libraries. And as president of the Wisconsin Library Association, in particular right now, I'd like to thank Governor Tony Evers for his recent proclamation this week in recognition of National Library Week. The governor recognized libraries as treasured institutions of critical importance to cities, towns, schools, campuses, and communities across Wisconsin, and we appreciate his recognition very much.
Great. Thank you for that. And if you are watching us live, just as a friendly reminder, you could post all questions or comments below. We'll get to them shortly. And also feel free, if you do support your local library, how often do you go to your local library? You can also post that below. Would love to know how often you are visiting the library, or maybe your loved one is. So you are here as the president, of course, as the Wisconsin Library Association. So what is that, and how does it support libraries and citizens across Wisconsin?
Thank you. The association has a little over 1,400 members across the state, representing public libraries, which is the type of library you typically think of where you go in your community. Academic libraries, those are at colleges and universities. They serve the professors and the students. Special libraries, that can be a library in an art museum or a library at Borner Botanical Garden has a librarian. Law libraries, when you go in and you need help filling out forms, they might help legislators or lawyers or the public who need help with looking up the laws. So we work with all types of libraries across the state. We offer 4 conferences a year to help with continuing education. We help library staff and also library boards learn how to advocate for the library during the budget season. At the local level, also at the state level. Last year, every year we meet with our legislators during Library Legislative Day in February, and through developing relationships the last few years, in the last budget cycle, they increased the amount of money given to the public library systems across the state, and that ends up then supporting all the local libraries in different ways. So WLA is out there to help everyone engage and inspire and train to advocate for their local libraries, whatever that may be for them.
Great. And so I currently reside in Milwaukee, but I was born and raised in Racine, so I still follow a lot of the stuff on social media. And I thought it was fascinating that the Racine Library checks out crickets, those like machines that you can do all this like
yeah.
I think that's what it's called. So I was just like, wow, the libraries have really kind of come a long way. It's not that you could still obviously get a book, but there's so much more. So we know that not all libraries are the same. Would that be correct?
Yeah. So, I relate it to eggs. We all eat eggs, but some might scramble it, some, have an omelet. So each library does what they need to do for their community. And people are coming in for education, entertainment, enjoyment. We don't care if you're checking out Grisham or Shakespeare or learning how to build a compost bin. Library staff are here to help you find those resources. As you mentioned, a lot of libraries have what's now called a library of things. Yeah. My library we're calling it Take and Tinker. You can take out a projector for your backyard with a movie screen. Wow. In the summer, you can take out a cricket. For those who don't know, it's not a bug for chirping or an old bone. It's something for cutting out those vinyl letters to do crafting with. A lot of people like to use them to make displays like for a wedding. We check out puzzles, all sorts. Metal detector is very popular. Oh, wow. So some libraries do baking pans or tools. So you may not realize what all your local library is offering, whether you haven't been there in a while or you go all the time to get your book, but you haven't seen those extra collections. So talk to them and see what they offer. They do a lot of different things. I wanted to mention across the state of Wisconsin, there are 374 public libraries. On the low end, there's one open, it has one building, it's open 10 hours a week. There's others that are open 72 hours a week with branches. One library serves a population of 213, whereas Milwaukee Public Library, not the whole county, the specific city, covers almost 600,000 residents. So we're all serving people, but how we do it is going to vary based on our size, the needs of our community, if you're rural versus city, suburban, in the farmlands. And the beauty of libraries, public libraries, is regardless of size or budget, we care deeply about our communities, the work that we offer for the community. COVID living didn't change that. If anything, it amplified it and highlighted it even more as libraries really figured out, how do we still get people the books? How do we help them with technology when we can't see them in person? And really figuring out new ways of doing things the last couple of years. And we're now moving into that period of finding sort of the new normal of how much do we still do online versus in person? Where will things settle out? But we've been here working hard the whole time the last 2 years.
Great. And if you're just joining us, we're talking with Nyama Reed because this week is National Library Week. And it does look like we have 2 questions. We'll bring up Jim's first.
Excellent.
He states, I live in Madison area, which has a great library network in which we're able to obtain materials from other libraries in our system. What are the odds that this network could be expanded statewide?
Well, I would say it does. Most people don't realize it's there. delivery takes a long time. So if you're getting a book that's coming from the northern waters on down, it's going to take longer. So typically within your system, I'm in Milwaukee County, daily we get deliveries, and typically we can get a book from anyone else within Milwaukee County within a couple days. If you then ask for what's called an interlibrary loan, that is coming from outside your specific system. They go into a particular database online to see, is there another library in the state, whether it's a university library, a public library that has it and is willing to loan it. If it's a rare, say, reference book, they may not loan it, but they can tell you where to go. But we can bring in things here from Madison, from the law library that people can look at in-house. Sometimes it might even be a book from out of state that we can bring in. You just have to ask specifically for interlibrary loan. It doesn't show on your catalog. There's a different form. It might take 2 to 6 weeks to get it, but they can do that for you. And a lot of times they'll even do, like, say you want really old Star Trek Deep Space Nine DVDs. They won't do new ones in the last year, but a lot of the libraries will also send through the broader system and the state delivery those older DVDs. So, that's my advice, is to go to your librarian at the desk or call and ask to do an interlibrary loan.
Great, thank you. And it looks like we have a question from Arlene. Arlene says, public libraries are one of the most undervalued resource, definitely. Do all libraries have online resources that you can check out?
Through the state of Wisconsin, thankfully, very much so. The Department of Public Instruction, which is one of the state level departments that cover schools and libraries, they offer excellent resources called BadgerLink, and your local library will typically have the link to that. That's databases, online genealogy, things like that. They also have the WPLC. A lot of people are familiar with that, and those are the downloadable books through Overdrive, or now it's called Libby. They have audiobooks in there, some digital magazines they just added. There can be hold lists because it's covering the whole state. Other libraries may offer their own, where they pay extra through their system or their own library, depending on their budget. The downloadable materials are far more expensive per use or per title than a physical book. So some libraries can't afford to do it on their own, but Wisconsin has such great cooperation across the state and support from the state departments that they're able to offer that statewide collection in the WPLC. If you haven't used it and you're not familiar, talk to your local library and they'll show you how to download that.
Great, thank you. And thank you so much for those questions. And I echo what Arlene said about it's such an undervalued or underutilized resource about it. And that's why I'm so happy to have you on the show this week to not only let's celebrate National Library Week, but let's talk about all the great resources. So with that, how do libraries support and engage with older residents and really help create that livable community, which that I know that AARP is so passionate about? If you could talk a little bit about that.
Sure. I strongly believe libraries are almost the original livable community center, in so many communities, thinking back to our childhoods or going back. Libraries in America have helped make livable communities since the Boston Public Library opened its doors in 1854. That was the first publicly tax-supported public library. Before that, there were subscription libraries or things like that. So, this model within our country has been going for over 150 years. Anyone can come in. It's not called loitering. You can hang out all day. It doesn't cost you unless you forget to bring the book back, or you're making a copy or something, but you can read, relax, check out materials, attend programs, chat with your neighbors and staff to make connections and catch up. A lot of libraries have coffee now. We have a Keurig machine pre-COVID that we're still waiting to bring back out. So I believe just being that, what's often called the third space, or if you think about the old TV show Cheers, where everybody knows your name. It's not home, it's not work, it's where you can go and feel like you're seen and you're heard. And it's not just about getting the book. For some people, it's about making those connections. And libraries are all about connections within their communities.
And I might be dating myself here a little bit, but when I was younger, so my mom did not drive. She did not get her driver's license till she was 47. So we grew up on public transportation. And of course, going to the library was such a treat. But I remember the bookmobile. And the bookmobile was amazing. But and once again, I was from Racine, but it was under it. I think it had a lot of repairing to do, along the ways. Is there a such thing as a bookmobile anymore?
Oh, yes, definitely. They tend to be in the bigger cities, or sometimes with the systems like the Monarch system, which covers Ozaukee County, Sheboygan County, and a couple of the others up there, where there's more rural driving. It's harder for people to get out. The system owns the bookmobile. They are very expensive to purchase, very expensive to maintain. So the bigger ones like Milwaukee Public, or some of the systems may have them. Some places like, Whitefish Bay, we wouldn't have one, but other smaller communities, I've heard they get actually book tricycles. So imagine a librarian on the tricycle, and behind the two big tires is a big box that you fill with books, and we can take a laptop and a hotspot out, and we go to the park or we go to the farmer's market, and it's a smaller, more mobile idea for that, and certainly much more affordable than the bookmobile. So they do exist. It's not in all systems or all libraries due to cost, but we all find different ways to get out there, so you don't always have to come to the library. We might meet you at the farmer's market for a story time.
Oh my gosh, I want to see a librarian on a tricycle. So if you could tell me where they're so located, I love that idea. I love that the library can be accessible to all, if not many, even if you aren't near one or there's not transportation. Of course, check within your own area to see. But that bookmobile, I still remember the smell of it. It was just like so exciting.
I worked on one in Flint. And Flint, Michigan. I was there for a decade, and so they still had one and stuff. And so it's definitely a different way of doing things. You're going to different spots, daycares, businesses, senior housing developments and things like that to bring the books to the people. And they're waiting there, and they come out, and they're super excited. And they are a beautiful thing.
It's a memory. It's a good memory. Absolutely. So of course, I know we talked a little bit about this already during the show, but I would love to hear more about the programming that's offered these days. Once again, from when I have, when I was going to the library as a child to now, it's just like night and day. If you could talk a little bit about the programming.
Sure. And so libraries across the state, it can vary. It depends on your size and your staffing and what you're open for. There's programming, people think of story time, and certainly we have that. There's also typically some programming for teens, and there's programming for all ages or adults without it necessarily being specific to seniors. Sometimes there's those too. So I pulled together some examples here, so I'm going to do some call outs to people out there. Menominee Falls Public Library has a makerspace called The Forge. The Madison has the Bubbler, and your people may not know what is a makerspace. Different libraries do it different. They may have a 3D printer, they may have a laser printer, they may have the Cricut or all those cool machines for doing crafting where you couldn't do it yourself, but you can come in and learn how to do it. I've heard of someone years ago, a library had the 3D printer, and the gentleman was printing all the parts to make his own 3D printer at home.
Wow.
And another library years ago said it was very small. They had it right next to the desk, but the local people then could use a CAD program to learn how to design the engineering aspect of it and print it and then get jobs because they then had that skill. So they're just very popular for people to come in and do things. Smaller libraries may not have room for a dedicated makerspace, but they may have a knitting program or a crafting program for those who want creativity in their library. Book clubs, bread and butter for libraries. Lots of libraries have them. They may be online still in Zoom. They may be in person. Some are doing hybrid ones now. So there might be a couple of people still on Zoom on the screen and you in person, and you can still discuss the book. We just did one of those successfully a couple of weeks ago as we kind of, go back and forth with as COVID surges or comes back down. So one thing I want to mention, Portage Public Library is doing a community read versus just a book club. That's where you try to get the school students and the community. You leave books on the bus stop. You try to get everyone to read the same book, whether it's a fun one or one with deep issues, to kind of come together and discuss those. And you can get pins. So when you're at the grocery store, you go, oh, you read it too. What did you think about this? And Portage, the book they have coming up is My Twin Lanes. Some people may have heard of that. It was written by former Governor Marty Schreiber and about his wife when she had Alzheimer's. So they're doing the community read and then a lot of programming around dementia and dementia support in their community. Quite a few libraries, such as Hildebrand Library and Boscobel, do cooking classes, some in person, some online. So you can sit there and watch, Emma at Boscobel show you, how to make pasta and then cook it. When it's in person, I've been to ones where they make the food and you take home your own little to-go box of some of the pasta.
Ooh.
Some libraries do games. So our library in Delavan has card games and cribbage monthly. And they started with a staff member working with them, but as people learn to do it, it can be the space where your group comes and meets, and we host the program whether or not there's a staff member running it.
Yeah, and I know that we're going to get to some other programming. I just want to pull up, there's a comment from...
Sure.
Hold on, I'll pull it up. Okay, so there's a comment from Lori from the Nicolay Federated Library System. She said, absolutely, yes. At Arlene Arpaio in Wisconsin, digital library is available to anyone with a Wisconsin library card. There are many other resources as well, as they vary depending on the library. So thank you so much for that. If you could talk a little bit about the technology program, because I think now with COVID, of course, I think that opened up doors of opportunity to learn more about what that looks like. If you could talk a little bit more about what the libraries offer for that.
Certainly. And so there's things to use, such as DPI through BadgerLink offers Heritage Quest Online. You can go on and do some of your genealogy research. Some of the libraries pay for and offer Ancestry Library Edition, which is very similar to the Ancestry you may have personally, that you can access in library. During COVID at points they had where you could do it from home, but I believe they've gone back to now only in library. So you come in and with your library card, you can log in and use that and make your notes to search for your family tree. The 1950 census just came out last week, so those of us who are into it are already in there. The first census my mom was in at a few months old, updating all our family trees. And certainly a lot of people, even I'm not a digital native like my kids are. I didn't grow up with it. I still have to learn it. A lot of libraries offer whether regular classes where you can come in or one-on-one appointments. We call it a book a librarian. So you can come in for a dedicated half an hour to learn how to use the downloadable books from Overdrive onto the Libby app. Or you just say, I'm having this problem, what can I do? I've heard of some libraries where they say, oh, you want to set this up or download this app and you don't know how. And they'll really do it with you one-on-one. So again, reaching out to your library to ask what they specifically offer, or if a neighboring library that you can use offers it. Sometimes you got to kind of leverage multiple libraries around you, because one might offer just like, this one's really good with romance and this one has a lot of mysteries. So you know which one to go to. Same thing sometimes for the programming. This may have really good tech help and this one has really good DVD collection. So check around or ask your library, if you don't offer this, do you know who around us does?
And how about any programming specifically for our senior population? Does any of them kind of stick out to you about some libraries that are doing that?
Certainly. So different libraries such as Economalock Public Library and Neenah Library and many others offer memory cafes. Those have really taken off the last few years. And those are monthly gatherings for people with dementia and their care partners. So you may come in and they'll say, today we're going to talk about farms and what are your memories about farms? As research and experience has shown, people who live with dementia, they remember older memories better than newer today or last week ones. So getting them into that space where in a positive and safe environment, they can share those memories. It's uplifting for them rather than frustrating. And a lot of libraries are the meeting spaces for those. A lot of libraries such as Barrett Memorial Library are now offering home delivery and pickup, utilizing either staff or volunteers, depending on how the library set it up. Some are still doing curbside. And then some have mobile libraries where staff go to, say, senior living facility, and they may bring in a collection of 50 books for the month to put there that people then can use there, or lead a book club where they're actually going to, for people who aren't able to get out and come into the library, they're taking the library to them. So each library is doing it based on what they have available there. Another one that's really very cool to me, Bridges Library System, which covers Waukesha and Jefferson counties, got a grant from Bader Philanthropies to partner with StoryCorps, like you hear on NPR. I think this is amazing. And so staff was trained in how to do these interviews, how to do the technology, and they're really focusing on stories of the 55 plus group and their families, and they have recorded 50 stories, and they're aiming for another 100. So each library does things a little different. Quite a few also have, like, say you're concerned about your electric bill or you need to do their taxes, and they can refer you to who in the community is able to help you get those answers. Librarians, we don't always have the answers. Our goal is to refer you to who does. Greenfield Public Library here in Milwaukee County offers an actual senior ambassador program where they are working with the Milwaukee County Department of Aging and the retired and senior volunteer program. So a senior ambassador specialist comes in, uses the library space, it's not library staff, and they will meet one-on-one with adults and their caregivers to help them figure out, given their situation, what resources are available for them for legal issues, transportation, and making those referrals or helping with those applications. And then in the summer, the winter, if you don't have air conditioning and it's hot, come sit in the library. Like I said, it's not loitering. You're in the space, read the paper, read the magazines, and stay cool.
And if we could pull up the comment from Reed. So Reed just made a real nice comment. The library services are so varied and vital for the community. Could not agree with you more. We have one question, and I know we're kind of already, I could talk to you all day. So there is a question. What is the best way to support my local library?
Oh, thank you. Wonderful question. Certainly using the library when people say, oh, libraries are going away, you have the internet. No, never going to happen. A lot of people don't know how to use it or how to find it quickly. So just advocating and saying, library usage is up. Even millennials and zennials use libraries more than sometimes their parents do. So we're not going anywhere. When there are times when, say, there might be potential budget cuts, pay attention to your local budget process. If there are cuts, are they treating the library fairly? Are we getting an even cut compared to other departments? Or are they taking it out more on the library or sometimes the rec department or the parks, making those advocates at city meetings, emailing your local board people, emailing your state senators when there are issues that come up, and being there throughout the process. Send your compliments, not just your complaints, which is something I've been focusing on, during these days when I go out to restaurants if they do a good job. But give them the good word, especially the last couple of years have been hard. So dropping off some candy or a note even, or some balloons or a flower, and just saying, we appreciate you. That really can boost the morale for staff, and then advocating to the decision makers at the state and local levels is really important.
So many great ideas. My last question for you, my dear, is what is your all-time favorite book? What has been the book that you would maybe recommend to somebody who has not read it, since it is National Library Week?
Oh my gosh. So I'm just going to grab something really quick.
Oh yeah, please do.
So of course, as a librarian, my all-time favorite is Nancy Drew growing up. As an adult book, there's so many, but I was just down at our Friends of the Library book sale. If you're looking to volunteer, check out your local friends. And they had the dictionary that I grew up. This was my grandma's dictionary. And what I read, like, I was like a little kid in a candy shop, like, oh my God, that's my childhood dictionary. How much? And they said, oh, it's on the to-go table because it's so old, you can have it. And I literally like carried it up to my room like it was a puppy to my
That thing's huge. It's huge.
Wow. Wait to take it home. Like so often I would look up the words as I was reading to increase. And my goal has always been to read the dictionary. And now I always was bummed I couldn't read my old dictionary in my childhood. And now I have another copy. So
well, that is amazing. That was meant to be. If you found it, on the
Is
to-go table. That was meant
yeah.
to be.
Yeah.
And I want to thank you so much. It was amazing to hear about National Library Week, but also just how many resources that there are at the libraries. And I encourage all of our viewers, whether you're watching this live or in replay, visit your local library, please. Let's support them the best that we can. There's so much more there. If you're like, I want to read a book, magazine, just
you'll be amazed at how much more there is there than what you realize.
Yeah, so. Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your time today and your stories. And I love that you found that book. So that's amazing. So thank you so much for sharing that story with us.
Yes. Have a great day.
Thank you so much. Take care. And thank you. Of course, we always like to plug some upcoming events. So if any of these interest you, please feel free to register for them. So the April 11th, there's Elder Watch, so Safe and Smart Investing for Beginners. Also later that day is webinar hosted by our friends over at Fox Valley Technical College. So if you're interested in maybe starting a business over the age of 50, this is definitely the workshop for you. Even later that evening, there's a lot going on Monday, Pilates anytime. And then Thursday, April 14th, there's Smart Tech virtual workshops. This right here, if you have a newer car and you don't even know where to start with all those beautiful bells and whistles, please consider taking that. You can register below or call 1-877-926-8300. Small Dollar Big Impact, of course, is a grant that we do every month through AARP Wisconsin. If you're a nonprofit, municipality, or similar and have a really fun, cool, creative idea to impact your community, we invite you to apply for a grant of up to $1,000. And applications are due April 19th. You can go below to aarp.org/WISDBI, which stands for Small Dollar Big Impact, to apply or to look at prior winners. Next week's show, we will be joined by our beautiful AARP Wisconsin advocacy team. We always love to hear what they are saying. So, of course, you can join us back here next Thursday at noon on our Facebook.com page or our YouTube page. If you are watching this in replay, please feel free to share this on your page, and let's make an effort for all of us to try to visit our local libraries more, and let's not wait till National Library Week to do so. So once again, thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate it, and I look forward to seeing